So the other piece of that Lakers series was that they broke Golden State. And I actually thought it was worse than maybe the reporting and stuff afterwards. Although the reporting got a little bit dark and there were some big pieces. But just watching what I saw in person, Game 4, Game 6, I said after Game 4 on this podcast how they looked like coworkers to me and not a close-knit team anymore. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that we've talked about, where Draymond punches Poole. They have these young guys that all want to play. They have old guys who maybe aren't as good as they think they are anymore, who still think they are and carry themselves that way. A coaching staff that's been there for a while. It's just, there were things I didn't like seeing in Game 4, and I thought they were going to either lose Game 5 or Game 6, but I didn't think they were going to come back from 3-1. Game 6, it fell apart fast for them. And they were kind of hoping for the Clay game because he had sucked in Game 4 and Game 5, and he was worse in Game 6. And Curry was the only guy on the team who could create a shot. And Kerr has to go back to Jordan Poole at some point, hoping that he's going to do something. He couldn't do anything. And they were just outmanned and looked pretty broken as a team. And it was really interesting watching Iguodala in the timeout huddles. Because the coaches do the thing where they all move off to the side. And then it was basically Iguodala and Looney trying to keep everyone together and be like glue guys. And there's this moment in the second half where Poole was just mad. He was mad at everybody, and they're trying to calm him down. And he was mad at Steve Kerr about something. Steve Kerr got mad because he missed some sort of defensive assignment. He came back, and Kuminga got mad that he never came in. There was two guys talking to him. Somebody else is talking to Poole, and I'm like, oh my God, this is getting dark. Like this team has real issues. It was like being at a Thanksgiving table where a couple just starts fighting. You're like, oh my God, our cousins, they're just fucking airing it out right in front of us. To me, that team is going to make my takeaway is that team's going to make major changes despite what they said. I don't believe them. I think they have to. And if that changes, just trade Poole and trade Kuminga. If it's a little more ambitious and maybe Draymond leaves, I refuse to believe they're going to run it back. That is not a championship team. It's not.
You're right about the championship team part, and you were in attendance. And, I do think teams that are losing all look like they fucking hate each other towards the end of it. And I felt
they weren't close they were close last year, though. That was one of the things that made them last year was they were all kind of pulling together. That's not what was happening this year. And that was the whole year. That's why they're so bad on the road.
I'll say one thing and then I'll ask you a question. Whenever they lost, the Draymond Green punch on Jordan Poole was going to be brought back up as to some death blow. All right? Like the only other version where it wasn't going to be brought up is if they won a back-to-back title, which wasn't realistic. So, I think it's playing the results a little bit, unless you know for certain that they were all bummed out all year long, and that's why they didn't play as well. Because it's funny, because like Golden State loses in the second round, it's like, we should have seen this coming. Like, okay, we do the same thing with Miami Heat. Should we've seen this coming? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
You could see it coming after Game 4, though.
All right, okay, fine. Game 4. Game 4 down 3-1. They were bummed out. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But something dramatic happened to Poole this season. And then especially in the playoffs, like he averaged 11 points a game in the playoffs.
Right, but if they had lost to Sacramento, it was going to be Draymond punch Jordan Poole, ...
They almost did lose to Sacramento. They had the team meeting after Game 6. Like The Athletic wrote that whole piece about how Curry had to give like the first speech he'd ever given to the team in his whole life about how they had to stick together. I think this team had real issues.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm agreeing with you on the issues part, but I'm just telling you, like, the way we tell stories is the Draymond punched a teammate story was going to be used in whatever fashion it needed to be used once this team was eliminated, which was more likely than not that they were going to be eliminated at some point. So the same stories that ran after Game 6 were going to run after Game 7 if they lost Game 7 in Sacramento. And I don't know if that means the entire vibe was off all year. I don't know if it means could the vibe have been off because they knew they weren't as good? It was going to be hard to win a title, or is it just because Jordan Poole regressed so much or just loves to foul everybody all the time? The reason I bring that all up is I agree with you on a lot of the Golden State stuff. It's just, what do you actually think they're going to do? Like, how much different do you think they're going to be?
Can I greenie tease it for you?
Please.
Even though we're not going to a break. I'm going to tell you who the Draymond punch hurt the most. That's next. Then I come back from the break. That Draymond punch, you know what hurt the most? Draymond Green. I think it affected how he led the team. And you know what's really interesting about the Lakers series? All the Draymond stuff that he does that's great in a playoff series, he wouldn't do to LeBron and Davis. He didn't fuck with LeBron once.
Practically made out with him after they lost to him.
It was actually like shocking. It was shocking because if you have Draymond on your team, it's like, what are the benefits of having Draymond on your team? Incredible defensive player, incredible competitor, pretty good rebounder, great passer. And he seizes on whatever the mental or emotional or whatever weaknesses of the other team, like he did with the Celtics in that series where he's like, this team isn't tough enough. He fucking bullyballed the Celtics that whole series. Did he try anything with LeBron or Davis that whole series? No. LeBron, I get it. Like LeBron's his friend. They have the same agent, like all that stuff. Like LeBron's like his big brother in a lot of ways. Davis is exactly the kind of guy, if you were doing a fantasy draft, of people Draymond Green would fuck with. You'd put Davis on it. He didn't mess with him. And so he was kind of running around. He's like trying to start shit with Dennis Schroeder and Darvin Ham. It's like, go pick why don't you start fighting the two guys who are kicking your ass? And I'll tell you, like, I think LeBron befriending that guy was really smart. Because down the road, you never know if you're going to play against somebody like that. And they're going against them. And Draymond wasn't doing any of the normal Draymond stuff against them. So that's one side. And then the other side is the leadership thing, that it's pretty clear that it wasn't the same kind of leadership after that, where he was like a fiery, in everybody's face, like just love the team, all about the team, all about the team. And then he punched somebody. I did think it affected them. I think it affected Poole. Poole was awesome last year. He sucked in the playoffs. He was unplayable. So I don't know. To me, it's like multiple moments. It's how that punch affected Draymond and Poole. It's the fact that Kuminga wanted to play and he would. Like something happened with Kuminga where Kerr was like, I'm out. He'd stopped playing him completely. Like you needed Kuminga in the Lakers series. You needed his size and athleticism against LeBron. They didn't even try him. So I don't know. It just felt like an end of an era loss. And I think these things end badly. Nobody's had like the Pistons in 92. They had lost to the Bulls the year before, right? And then they lose to the Knicks in round one. It's like, whoa, this is over. That was my feeling after that Lakers series. To me, it felt like an ending, like we're now moving into a different era with them, because I don't think Klay's the same guy anymore, and I don't know what Draymond is at this point.
Agree with all of it. I don't know that anyone that ends goodly, though. Like it never, at the end, if this is truly the end, and the better bet is to say, hey, it's over, right?
Yeah, but you can't, because what is the payroll? You did all the math, the payroll luxury tax stuff with that's the thing with this, is they have no outs.
That's the point that I want to get to, is that I actually think they're going to look like the same team next year. So as much as people want to go, oh, this guy should be gone, or what are they going to do with Draymond? I mean, look, they're $81 million with Klay and Poole. Klay, to me, if he makes some shots, we don't care about Draymond's punch as much months and months later. I mean, the guy was 3 for 16 in an elimination game after not hitting a shot and looking like he was out of one of the Sacramento
Would you say
games.
Klay's a once-a-week guy, like what we talked about with Harden?
I don't know. He had like back-to-back months during the regular season. He had the highest scoring months of his career in 2 of those months. So I thought, okay, at least even if he's not, because he's not the same guy he was defensively when it felt like he was one of the best two-way
Not close.
That has not been the case. It's not coming back. That part's not coming back. The offense, I didn't think it was going to be, hey, every single game now, multiple games in a row. Every single game is a stretch, but like, look at his shooting numbers. Look at the games. Look at the games where you go, dude, he's not even close. And then when he's not hitting his shots, it's like, what am I actually getting from him? Because it's not rebounds. It's not playmaking. It's not that elite level defense. You don't assign him to the best perimeter guys anymore because he's going to get cooked. So
you wouldn't pay him $43 million?
I wouldn't want to, but he's an expiring. So what are you going to do? Go to Steph and say, hey, we're going to move on from Klay. We're going to break this up to try to reinvent it around you.
Well, Klay's opting in. Klay has a player option. He's going to opt in. There was some stuff in the reporting
I'm talking about trades. I'm talking about trades.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to trade Klay. I don't see that happen. So, they're going to trade. I think they trade Poole and Kuminga, I think, would be the leading contenders.
And I would still be interested in both players. I think Kerr, they tried to do something that it's hard enough to rebuild in this league. They tried to rebuild while they were competing for titles. Good luck. It's really hard to do. And, all 3 lottery guys between Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody not being even one bankable rotation guy, it really hurt them extending this. Wiseman not having another serviceable big because Kerr didn't want to play him. And then they don't bring in another big just to back up Looney, Because, if you're looking at mapping out potential playoff matchups and maybe they didn't map out the Lakers part of it enough, you're like, okay, wait, centers are a little overrated and they can get played off the floor, but do we have 20 other minutes from another center? Are we going to ask Looney to run around the whole time or have Draymond Green defending Jokic or AD if they were to get through the second round? So,
and you lose DDV, who was their second best guy in Game 6, which is a problem.
And Wiggins wasn't even close to being the same guy in Game 6 as he was in Game 5, which is another thing where he's gone. Again, he was gone. So then it's like, oh, hey, he's back and he's back for the playoffs. Let's ramp this whole thing up again. The numbers are the thing that matters here because Steph's at 52, Klay's at 43, Poole is at 29. Draymond has a player option at $27.5 million. I'm sure they want to re-sign him despite everything that's happened. So if he were to opt out, does he opt out knowing he's got an extension for the same number for 3 years maybe? Wiggins is actually a valuable contract because he's pretty good. He's not great, but he's good. He's at $25 million the next 3 years. The problem is you keep adding these up. Gary Payton's $9 million, Looney's $7.5 million, Kuminga, where you'd still keep him on the books because you want the asset. DiVincenzo's going to opt out of his player's option. They are, with the repeater tax, they're $55 million over the tax. All right. But because they're through the second apron of the triggers, their tax for next year, if they keep all of this together, is $250 million, which is more than any other team's payroll. Their tax bill will be that much more. So the question I don't have the answer to is, despite how bad it looked here at the end and all the different storylines, which are all valid, I'm not dismissing any of it. I'm simply asking, I wonder how much that'll impact this team from looking different, because I don't know how many mechanisms they have to be different. You start moving out assets to trim payroll, then you're not actually making yourself better. Can you do that if you're Curry? Will Bob Myers be the guy that wants to walk away from Curry with still a few years left of his prime, we would think? And does any owner, even Joe Lacob, go, hey, a 40-something win team that cost me $250 million in tax? Yeah, let's run it back. No owner ever seems to want to do something like that because no owner's ever had to before.
Well, the other problem with him is he's got a lot of minority owners, and the higher that tax goes and the repeater tax and all that stuff, this isn't Matt Ishbia owning 80% of the Suns. This is a bunch of minority owners who invest in the team, who look at stuff like, wait, we're going to pay $400 million and we lost in Game 6 in round 2. Well, let me ask you this. The Lakers call you, FaceTime. Not just Joe, but the two sons. The three of them call you. They're like, Russillo, we need your advice. What do you think we should do? If they called me, I think I would tell them to throw away next year and just reboot and get out of whatever next year looks like. Not throw away is the wrong word. I would try to get off that Poole contract, and I would make it very clear to Klay that if he does come back with the Warriors, there's just no way you're going to be making anything close to $43 million again. So you tell us what you want us to do, because that money's not going to be there. And I would not pay Draymond anything higher than low 20s at this point, because I would really, really, to me, there's like some real Ben Wallace mid-late 2000s potential with him, where when it goes, those intangible guys, when it goes with them, it goes fast. And I'd be really nervous about that, because there's no plan B for him if his athleticism starts going, and he's played a lot of games over the last 10 years. I would just be nervous about that. And I would think about trading Kuminga. Because
I think that covers it.
What am I paying Kuminga in 2 years? I don't even know what he is. And he's going to be eligible for the rookie extension. I guess this summer, but really next summer. I don't know. The trade I would be looking for them if I was them is trying to trade Jordan Poole to a team with cap space, so I can get a bunch of cap relief and maybe get a player back who's not as good but is way cheaper, and he gets a fresh start. And by the way, if I was another team, I would be intrigued by Jordan Poole. He's a change of scenery guy to me. If it's like the Wizards or the Spurs or a team like that, the Magic,
he'd make a great Wizard. The Magic aren't touching somebody like that. We're going to stop dumping everybody's problems on the Magic.
Well, I like to bring them up just to make sure Cerruti's ppaying attention.
Oh,
there's
Oklahoma
another
City's
thing with
got
them.
Cap space. They're not doing it. Detroit's got cap
Cerruti
space.
says, I actually don't hate it. That was he just chatted us that. There's one more piece I want to mention to you from a basketball standpoint about this team. Because we saw them get overpowered by Davis and LeBron, right? during their heyday, they never really played it. Did they play a team that could do that during the whole heyday? Right? Because I was thinking about 2018 when LeBron had that incredible game one. That's the best game I've ever been to with LeBron, when he just overpowered them physically and then went to OT because of J.R. Smith, and the Warriors ended up winning. But just in general, from 2014 on, can you remember a team overpowering them like that? And I wonder, like, is the league, there's more centers, there's more physicality, there's more guys who can kind of punish you if you're undersized. And maybe that lineup that they played had a little bit of a shelf life, especially if Draymond's athleticism is starting to fade a tiny bit.
Well, the beginning, no, because they had Bogut. And I mean, you weren't going to, and then when they didn't have him, they had the best starting five in the history of the game.
Right. But who's in the league in the mid 2010s that's going to make them pay for it the same way that
not Tristan
a team
Thompson.
with LeBron and Davis together?
Yeah, not Tristan Thompson.
Or Jokic. Like if they had played Denver next round, I think Denver would have done the same thing, right? They were going against Dwight Howard. They were going against whoever was on Portland, Nurkic, that Clippers team in 2000, the mid 2010s. I just don't remember ever being worried about them being physically overpowered until this series. This is the first time I was like, whoa, they're not big enough, which is never something you said with the Warriors. It was always like, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, because everybody kept missing shots too. Like that's the other part of this math that, like, I'm with you. It was bad. When you're big and tired, I'd rather be big and tired than small and tired, because when you're small and tired, you don't get there. But when Clay misses all of his shots and Poole gets out there to see how many bad fouls he can commit immediately, and Draymond doesn't look at the rim, and then Wiggins is a no-show in that last game, like, that's when it is going to look bad. I mean, it's a good point on the center stuff, but they were more armed. They were more armed with not
just guys. The center stuff, the overpowering thing. Because like what LeBron was doing to them, I don't really know what their answer was. It's something the Celtics couldn't do against them. But it reminded me of in the 90s Bulls. The one thing, if you're going to pick, like if you're doing the greatest teams of all time and you're arguing, all right, how would you beat this team? What was their flaw? And we never really saw with the 90s Bulls in those 6 years, other than Ewing, was a team that could try to, basically a team that was big could try to physically overpower them. What would that look like, right? Rick Smits was somebody that had success against them. But the two best Hakeem years, those were the years that Jordan was playing baseball or came back. And so we never kind of saw them have to deal with a Hakeem type. So it was one of those questions, we'll just never have an answer for it. And the Warriors for years, it was the same kind of thing. Well, what would happen if they played this type of team? What would it look like? And we kind of found out in this Lakers series. I thought LeBron, anytime he wanted, could get to the rim. Anytime.